What was really striking me, I think, most of all, is that when you go out to the exhibits, you feel like a person. You're kind of impressed by the technology, and have the wow factor, and you just feel very human about it. And then, as you mentioned, the other part of CES is all your partner meetings and agency meetings, where you're very much the marketer. And the idea at the end of this, obviously, is connecting the two. How are you finding what's really interesting and compelling and human about the technology, but how are you sort of passing the so what test? What is that actually doing for a client who's looking to increase demand, generate growth, and what have you? So I think, for me, it kind of parlays into some of the tensions that you see out there, right? People talk about the amount of technology, and all that technology increasingly seems to be giving consumers more control. Content, of the moment, of the time. But the tension to me is when we have all our partner meetings, we're talking about increasingly the amazing amount of sophistication of the data we have and knowledge we have about those consumers. So we don't lament the control of the consumer too much. We think that's a great thing, because that's creating these amazing environments and moments and times for us to actually use that data to make the most and be the most relevant we can in those times. The more time people spend with data, the more they realize how liberating it is from a creative standpoint. In other words, I think fewer and fewer people are just thinking from the 4-month-long strategic process that then goes into a 3-month creative process, and you create the silver bullet campaign that's going to take care of all your marketing needs. It doesn't work that way. What's really interesting about the data, especially coming from media companies, is that you're identifying through that consumer journey, purchase path, whatever you want to call it, these really interesting moments that are make or break for a brand in the decision-making process, the triggers, the barriers. As you line these up and take a look at them, these are incredibly interesting content opportunities. What can you do at that moment of time to actually get somebody to go from another brand to your brand, from going from being indecisive to more decisive, from going from being indifferent to preferring your brand? As a creative, as working with creative people a lot, we know they love when you can kind of give them those kind of insights, because they can be very thoughtful about what they're creating for that moment, as opposed to one thing for everybody. What I've found is that creative people, seem to love what's feeling like the new process. So instead of strategy to content development to looking at your go-to-market media activation plan, if you can actually deliver to the creative people, these are the actual times and environments and places where we believe that we can make a real difference. These are the real priorities. And so creative people, instead of just thinking very broadly about it, are actually thinking about, oh, in that particular environment, this would be a great thing to do. Now, part of the difference is sometimes those creative people are creative agency people, but now some of those times they're on the publishing side, working in partnership with you. But you're hit right on it. I mean, I think if those things go to a place where you feel consumer feels deceived, or they get a little bit into it, then all of a sudden there's an aha moment, like, oh, hold on, this isn't the New York Times, this is somebody else doing it, then it's been a fail. But I think because we have so much understanding of what people's interests are, what they're looking for in that moment, what they're trying to do, there's certainly the opportunity to create those things. But again, these things come down to, there's a group of people, creative people in the world, who are quite good at that, who have the talent and craft to be able to deliver something of importance and relevance to somebody, even if it's through a native ad or what have you. The other, because people talk about content marketing, and people tend to, and it seems to me, talk about content marketing as the stuff that is, most related to purchase, and here's the very direct response kind of things, or the things you do digitally. But I don't see any dividing line. Everything from a marketing standpoint is content. So the trick right now is, how do you really think about that holistically? So as we're doing any kind of storytelling, we're actually looking at that in the big picture. So I think it wouldn't be bad for us all to get to a common definition of content marketing, because I'm hearing a lot of different ones.
And what do you think of the role of the publishers in content marketing? A lot of publishers are making this, instead of just selling space, they're becoming content creators for advertising. How do you see that?
I tend to like it. I mean, it tends to work well in concept and reality, I think, when you have people who are so intimate with the audience and what the mission of what they're trying to do. And I think the idea that, they know at the end of the day, as publishers and editors and creative people, that it's going to be delivering the kind of experience to those people that's going to have them come back again. And again, it's like any marketing for them. If Facebook fills up their newsfeed with too many ads, you know, anytime you ruin it and tip the balance, that's the magic that kind of divides between success and failure on those things. Native advertising example, you know, is an example of that. But I think it will do everybody in the whole chain, you know, throughout there a disservice if we end up in a place where people are, like I said, are feeling deceived or duped, because you know then it'll all just lose value for anybody trying to actually build a brand.